Good day everyone, welcome again to another episode of tax training, and today I will discuss to you BIR Form number 1601C, the monthly remittance return of income taxes withheld on compensation. So the requirement for this return, enter all required information in capital letters using black ink. Mark all applicable boxes with an X. 2 copies must be filed with the BIR and 1 held by the taxpayer. So all in all, you have to make 3 copies. This BIR Form number 1601C is enhanced January 2018. So this is an enhanced version to conform with the train law. Line number 1 for the month and year. Number 2, is this an amended return? Yes or no? If you have filed an original return and you want it corrected, then you check the amended return, yes. Any taxes withheld? Yes or no? Number of sheets attached, and then the alphanumeric tax code is WW010. Line number 6, taxpayer identification number, and number 7, RDO code. For the withholding agent's name, you have to write there the last name, first name, middle name for individual, or the registered name for non-individual. For the registered address, you have to indicate the complete address. If branch, then indicate the branch address. And then the zip code. Then line number 10, the contact number. And then 11, category of withholding agent, whether it is private or government. Because this form is can be used by both the private withholding agent and the government withholding agent. Email address. Line number 13, other payers availing of tax relief under special law or international tax treaty, yes or no? If yes, specify what kind of law or under what section or provision of the tax treaty. For the part 2, the computation of tax. So for line number 14, we have the total amount of compensation, less non-taxable exempt compensation. And number 15, statutory minimum wage for minimum wage earners. So it's not subject to withholding tax. Number 16, holiday pay, overtime pay, not shift differential pay, hazard pay for minimum wage earners only. And then line number 17, 13th month pay and other benefits, you have to put there the amount. Line number 18, de minimis benefits. Line number 19, GSIS, PHIC, its DMF, mandatory contributions and union dues by employees share only. Line number 20, other non-taxable compensation. Line number 21, total non-taxable compensation. Line number 22, total taxable compensation. Item 14 less item 21. Line number 23, less taxable compensation not subject to withholding tax. Line number 24, net taxable compensation. Number 25, total taxes withheld. In the total taxes withheld, you are going to compute using the withholding tax table. And since this is monthly, then the total taxes that you are going to withhold on a monthly basis. Total tax withheld, add or less adjustment of taxes withheld from previous months. Line number 27, taxes withheld for remittance. 28, less tax remitted and returned, previously filed if this is an amended return. Other remittances made, specify. Line number 30, total tax remittance is made. 31, tax still due or over remittance. Add penalties, line number 32, the surcharge, interest, compromise, and then the total penalties. Line number 36, we have the total amount still due over remittance, and this form is signed under the penalties of perjury. For individual and for non-individual. For individual, signature over printed name of the taxpayer or authorized representative, tax agent. Tax agent accreditation number and attorney's roll number, date of issue, and then the date of expiry. For non-individual, signature over printed name of the president or vice president, authorized officer or representative, or tax agent. Part 3, the details of payment. The particulars, drawing bank agency, the number, date, and then the amount. Whether it is cash or bank debit memo, check, or tax debit memo, or other specified below. Should be machine validated and stamp of receiving office or the accredited agent banks. For page 2, we have the withholding agent's name. Under the part 4, we have the schedule. Schedule 1, adjustment of taxes withheld and compensation from previous months. Previous months, date paid, drawee bank, code agency, the number, tax paid excluding penalties for the month. Should be tax due for the month. And then the adjustments. So, 6 less 5 equals the adjustment. Total adjustment. Okay. So this is Form 1601C, the monthly remittance return on tax withheld on compensation or from the salaries. So what is the guidelines and instruction for this BIR Form number 1601C, enhanced on January 2018. Who shall file? This monthly remittance return shall be filed in triplicate by every withholding agent, payer required to deduct and withhold taxes and compensation paid to employees. If the person required to withhold and pay, remit the tax, is a corporation, the return shall be made in the name of the corporation and shall be signed and verified by the President, Vice President, or any authorized officer. If the government of the Philippines or any of its agencies, political subdivision or instrumentalities, or a government-owned or controlled corporation, is the withholding agent or payer, the return shall be accomplished and signed by the officer or employee having control of disbursement of income payments or other officer or employee appropriately designated for the purpose. With respect to a fiduciary, the return shall be made in the name of the individual, estate, or trust for which such fiduciary acts and shall be signed and verified by such fiduciary. In case of 2 or more joint fiduciaries, the return shall be signed and verified by one of such fiduciaries. Authorized representative and accredited tax agent filing in behalf of the taxpayer shall also use this return to pay, remit the creditable taxes withheld. In the case of hazardous employment, the employer in the private sector shall attach to BIR Form number 1601C for return periods March, June, September, and December, a copy of the list submitted to the Department of Labor and Employment, regional, provincial offices, operations, division, unit. The list shall show the name of the minimum wage earners who received the hazard pay period of employment, amount of hazard pay per month, and justification for payment of hazard pay as certified by said DOLE or allied agency that the hazard pay is justifiable. So in the same manner, for the aforementioned return period, employer in the public sector shall attach a copy of the Department of Budget and Management or DBM circular or equivalent as to who are allowed to receive hazard pay. When and where to file and pay or remit. The return shall be filed and the tax paid or remitted on or before the 10th day of the month following the month in which withholding was made, except for taxes withheld for December, which shall be filed and paid or remitted on or before January 15 of the succeeding year. So for regularly 10th day of the following month, except in December, because that will be remitted on the January 15, considering that that is a year-end period. Provided, however, that with respect to non-large and large taxpayer who shall file through the electronic filing and payment system, the deadline for electronic filing, the return, and paying or remitting the taxes due thereon shall be in accordance with the provision of existing applicable revenue issuances. The return shall be filed and tax paid remitted with the authorized agent bank, AEB of the Revenue District Office, having jurisdiction over the withholding agent's place of business or office. In places where there are no authorized agent bank, the return shall be filed and the tax paid or remitted with the Revenue Collection Officer, RCO of the RDO, having jurisdiction over the withholding agent's place of business or office will issue an electronic revenue official receipt EROR. Therefore, when the return is filed with an AAB, taxpayer must accomplish and submit BIR prescribed deposit slip, which the bank teller shall machine validate as evidence that payment remittance was received by the AAB. The AAB receiving the tax return shall mark the word received on the return and also machine validate the return as proof of filing and payment remittance of tax by the taxpayer. The machine validation shall reflect the date of payment, remittance, amount paid, remitted and transactions code, the name of the bank, branch code, teller's code, and teller's initial. Bank debit memo, number, and date should be indicated in the return for taxpayers paying or remitting under the bank debit system. Payment remittance may also be made through the e-payment channels of the AABs through either their online facility, credit, debit, prepaid cards, and mobile payments. A taxpayer may file a separate return for the head office and for its bank or place of business or office, or a consolidated return for the head office and all the branches or offices. In the case of large taxpayers, only one consolidated return is required. Penalties, there shall be imposed and collected as part of the tax a surcharge of 25% for the following violations: failure to file any return and pay the amount of tax on installment due on or before the due date; filing a return with person or office other than those with whom it is required to be filed unless otherwise authorized by the Commissioner; failure to pay the full or part of the amount of tax shown on the return or the full amount of tax due for which no return required to be filed on or before the due date; failure to pay the deficiency tax within the time prescribed for its payment in the notice of assessment; a surcharge of 50% of the tax of the deficiency tax in case any payment has been made before the discovery of the falsity or fraud for each of the following violations: willful neglect to file the return within the period prescribed by the code or by rules and regulations, or a false or fraudulent return is willfully made. Number 3, interest at the rate of double the legal interest rate for loans or forbearance of any money in the absence of an express stipulation as set by the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas from the date prescribed for payment until the amount is fully remitted, provided that in no case shall the deficiency and the delinquency interest prescribed under Section 249 subsections B and C of the National Internal Revenue Code as amended be imposed simultaneously. Compromise penalty as provided under applicable rules and regulations. Violations of withholding tax provisions. Any person required to withhold, account for, and pay, remit any tax imposed by the National Internal Revenue Code or the NIRC as amended, or who willfully fails to withhold such tax or account for and pay or remit such tax, or aids or abets in any manner to evade any such tax or the payment or remittance therefore, shall, in addition to other penalties provided for under the law, be liable upon conviction to a penalty equal to the total amount of the tax not withheld or not accounted for, unpaid, or remitted. Any person required under the NIRC as amended or by rules and regulations promulgated thereunder to pay or remit any tax, make a return, keep any record, or supply correct and accurate information who willfully fails to pay or remit such tax, make such return, keep such record, or supply such correct and accurate information, or withhold or pay, remit taxes withheld, or refund excess taxes withheld on compensation at the time or times required by law or rules and regulations, shall, in addition to the other penalties provided by law, upon conviction thereof, be punished by a fine of not less than 10,000 pesos and suffer imprisonment of not less than 1 year but not more than 10 years. Every officer or employee of the Government of the Republic of the Philippines or any of its agencies and instrumentalities, its political subdivision, as well as government-owned or controlled corporation, including the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, who, under the provisions of the NIRC as amended or regulations promulgated thereunder, is charged with the duty to deduct and withhold any internal revenue tax and to pay or remit the same in accordance with the provision of the NIRC as amended, and other laws, and who is found guilty of any offense herein below specified shall, upon conviction of its act or omission, be fined in a sum not less than 5,000 pesos, but not more than 50,000 pesos, or imprisonment for a term not less than 6 months and 1 day, but not more than 2 years, or both. Those who fail or cause the failure to deduct and withhold any internal revenue tax under any of the withholding tax laws and implementing regulations. Those who fail or cause the failure to pay or remit taxes deducted and withheld within the time prescribed by law and implementing regulations, and those who fail or cause the failure to file return or statement within the time prescribed or render or furnish a false or fraudulent return or statement required under the withholding tax laws and regulations. If the withholding agent is the government or any of its agencies, political subdivisions, or instrumentalities, or a government-owned or controlled corporation, the employee thereof, responsible for the withholding and payment remittance of tax, shall be personally liable for the additions to the tax prescribed by the NIRC as amended. Required attachments for private sector, copy of the list submitted to the DOLI, Regional Provincial Offices, Operations Division Unit. For public sector, copy of Department of Budget and Management or DBM circular or equivalent. Note, all background information must be properly filled out. The last 5 digits of the 14-digit TIN refers to the branch code. All returns filed by an accredited tax agent on behalf of a taxpayer shall bear the following information. For individual CPAs, member of GPPs and others, taxpayer identification number and BIR accreditation number, date of issue and date of expiry. For member of the Philippine Bar or lawyers, taxpayer identification number, attorney's roll number, mandatory continuing legal education or MCLE compliance number, and BIR accreditation number, date of issue and date of expiry. So this is the monthly remittance return of income tax withheld on compensation, BIR Form 1601C. So what happened to this 1601C or monthly remittance return? At the end of the year, you have to total all this, and it should tally with your salaries and wages that you will claim in your audited financial statement or in your income tax return. So with this, I would like to say thank you and have a good day.